Michael Myers is one of the big three of the slasher genre. These are typically considered to be Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees. I go back and forth between who is my personal favorite of all of these, but I do think I have to choose Michael Myers, mainly because something about him scares me more than any of the other ones could, and it's the fact that he is a man without any sense, any moral sense. So it's not even so much that there's a complete lack of morals, it's that they were never there. Never any sense of feeling for anyone, and not even himself. He is in a man's body, but he's a killing machine. I discussed the original Halloween for my last year's video, and I wasn't sure if I was going to discuss any of the Halloween films this year, but I knew that I had to. So I decided to discuss the first direct sequel to Halloween, Halloween 2. This film, like many a sequel, was never supposed to happen. It wasn't something that neither John Carpenter or Deborah Hill wanted, but because of the success of the original film, studio execs said it was gonna happen whether or not Carpenter and Hill wanted it to. So Carpenter decided that he wasn't going to direct this film, and that means that it ended up being Rick Rosenthal's directorial debut, and Deborah Hill joined John Carpenter in writing the script for Halloween 2. Hello, I'm Ainsley. This is The Quiet Riot, where we dive a little deeper into film, television, and media. I'm excited to talk about Halloween 2 because I do have an affinity for this franchise. I definitely don't have the same affinity I once did as a teenager. I was quite obsessed with the sequels to this movie, and at that point it just went up to Halloween Resurrection. I wanted to sit here and discuss this movie and the things that I like about it as a slasher film, the things that I don't like about it as a Halloween movie and a movie featuring Michael Myers. I'm going to critique the movie, and I'm gonna tell you whether or not I think it is the best direct sequel, the best sequel, or just give you my general thoughts. I would love to know your thoughts on Halloween 2 as well, and know what your favorite sequel is, so please let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to know where you can watch Halloween 2, check that out, and also find out my resources and where else you can find The Quiet Riot.
Mrs. Elrod? Mr. Elrod? Are you okay?
Taking place on the same night as the original film, it goes directly after the cliffhanger ending of Halloween. But this time, Laurie Strode is confined to a hospital bed in the local Haddonfield hospital. This is not the only time that Laurie Strode would be in a hospital. As we know, she had a very brief appearance in Halloween Resurrection where she was in a hospital, and she was spent most of her time in a hospital, like pretty much all her time in the hospital in Halloween Kills. So this was the first film, and I like to call that the Laurie Strode Hospital Trilogy. I am not the biggest fan of confining Laurie Strode here. I do like a one location, and while we get to see some of Haddonfield outside the hospital, the majority of our time is spent there, and I do love a good one location, but I do feel like I do wish we had a little bit more of Laurie here, especially since it is a sequel. And of course, she had a really traumatic experience. She's weakened by all the things that happened to her that night. So I can understand why she'd spend the majority of her time either in her hospital bed or on the floor. But I don't know, it just kind of feels like things have been diminished for her character here. When it comes to Dr. Loomis, his character here is definitely giving more bad guy. Like, he's not intentionally being a bad guy, but he is causing a lot of problems for the people of Haddonfield, including literally being the reason why Ben Tramer dies. In that scene, we have Ben Tramer, who is walking with his candy down the street, and he ends up yelling at him, and Lee's car runs into him, and it ends up exploding, and he's dying, and he doesn't look anything like him because his mask has blonde hair, and the mask of Michael Myers looks quite a bit different here because there had been some time between filming the original movie and filming the sequel, and Nick Castle, who portrayed adult Michael in the film, he would put the mask in his back pocket, and in the hiatus between the filming of Halloween and Halloween 2, Deborah Hill had the mask underneath her bed, and it turned yellow. It wasn't taken good care of because she did smoke, so the look of that kind of messed it up. And then of course you have Dick Warlock, who is portraying Michael Myers here. It does have a different face shape, and being the kind of mask that it is, it can make it look a bit different. So while this is the same mask, it is not, it doesn't look as good as how it originally did in the first film. I don't mind. I really like Dick Warlock's performance here, being that Nick Castle was the first one, and he brought a lot of those elements of the character that is, being that he's very curious in the same way that a dog is curious, the way he tilts his head. And that was something that was brought to the character by Nick Castle. Oftentimes Nick Castle and John Carpenter will say that the other one is the person that came up with it. But Nick Castle was the person who brought that on screen, and he brought that. I feel like that's the only thing that can be truly reminiscent, besides like the body of Michael Myers, reminiscent of what it is to be a human being, is that human curiosity. And that is something that Michael Myers has in spades, and that is what Nick Castle brought to it. And so while I am much preferring why I have a preference for Castle's performance, I do think Dick Warlock did a really great job here. There are some problems that I have with things that the sequels brought to the world of Haddonfield and Michael Myers and all of that, and that is Thorn. And the Cult of Thorn, and giving this some, supernatural cult stuff. For me, it took away a lot of what made the original so great for me, and that was the more simplistic nature of it, and just the evil within a human being, or just the fact that he had a desire to kill and cause fear, and that was it. He enjoyed the act of killing, and when he comes back to Haddonfield after, not being there for 15 years, and now he's an adult, he killed one person, and so he has that desire to continue doing it. And he has a tendency, I think in the film, when you see him, he either kills because he needs something, and he will kill to get it. Like, he's not just gonna like take that person out of their car and take their clothes and like scare them. He wants to kill them. Like, it's almost like he has a thirst for that. But I think that for the most part, especially for the male characters, it's a lot about what can you give me? You're in my way. And then when he was in Haddonfield and he saw Laurie, he was drawn to her, and he maybe in the same way of like killing Judith Myers. And when he saw her friends, like, these were the people that he wanted to kill, and anyone else, it was they're getting in his way or he needs something from them. And that changes here in Halloween 2, where he's just essentially killing people. And one of my favorite parts of the sequel is the first time that we see Michael Myers, and he goes into the house and he gets the knife, and she goes back and there's, the blood there, and he didn't end up killing them because I don't think he had much of a desire to, and he just wanted the knife and that was it. But then when he saw the neighbor, like, he wanted to. And I think there's these teenage girls are surrogates for Judith, and there was that desire to kill Judith again and again and again. And so to me, that also adds a sense of humanity to him, where he is devoid of a lot of what we think of when we think of humanity, but it adds the more realistic nature of what we know for certain serial criminals who kill people. That in many ways that is kind of taken out of it in the sequels, especially, you know, we see it in this one, and he has this desire to kill her because she's his sister, which I don't like. I'm glad that in the most recent trilogy that was taken out of it. I don't really like the fact that they're siblings, and again, I don't like the whole supernatural cult. It takes away my personal, like, what I personally liked about Michael Myers and what I personally liked about that story, and makes it a lot more complicated. I also wish that they knew how to say Samhain, because in the movie they say Samhain, which I knew that it was wrong back then, but it now that I, like, of course I'm an adult and I know what Samhain is, it makes it a lot worse. And I do think it makes some sense that he would not know because he's read it and that's it. I don't think he's actually heard it said, so it does make some sense, but it still kind of makes me grit my teeth a little bit. In the movie, we have both Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis return for their roles, but unfortunately, Nick Castle did not, so they got Dick Warlock to take over the role. And we also have a lot of new characters. Sheriff Brackett did return. He is not in it for a whole lot of times, but we do see his daughter being taken out of the house, and so we're kind of seeing where Haddonfield is at this time. Like, some people know what is going on, not everyone does. It's directly after the events of that night, and so it makes sense to me that some people would be maybe a little too calm here. I like to watch the original one on its own as like a standalone film, and then it's been a minute since I've seen a lot of the other sequels, but I will watch Halloween 2 every year because I do think it's an entertaining film. There's stuff that I don't like about it, but it has some really interesting kills, and what can I say? I do like Michael Myers. My favorite one here is the one where he lifts her up. He uses a scalpel and he lifts her up. That is, to me, the best thing about this movie is the different kinds of kills that we got, because all of our other kills were either knife related or strangle related, where this one things were a little bit different. And I do like the one where they're in the bath, not the bath, I think it's I can't think of what it's called, but a hot tub. They're in the hot tub and he pushes him down and you kind of see his hand and it's burning and stuff. And that gives us another indication that he doesn't feel pain. Another element of the film that I couldn't really get behind, and this is related to the fact that Laurie and Michael are related, and that is the flashback scene. The scenes themselves are supposed to be Laurie having kind of memory dreams about Michael and her family, and I don't like the way that it portrays the Strodes. In this case, we're seeing her mother and she doesn't really seem to want her, and we're not really given much more about her birth parents, but her relationship to Michael, just kind of how we are introduced to the character in the first movie, and then all of a sudden they're siblings. Like, we don't need that element here. I think him feeling this need that he gets satisfaction out of the completion of this, and that is his desire and what is sending him forward to do this. To me, that makes more sense, and it remains simplistic and true to the story of the first film. But when it comes to the fact that they're siblings, it just adds a lot of hoopla that I don't think is very needed here, and it wasn't something that I found that really added anything interesting to the story. In my opinion, what they should have done here was, she's taken to the hospital, and because he didn't end up finishing it and he didn't end up killing her, and Dr. Loomis knows Michael. He may not have had conversations with Michael, but he probably knows Michael better than anyone. He knows that if if we can't find him, he is going to want to go after Laurie. And so that is what sends Dr. Loomis to the hospital and what makes Dr. Loomis want to protect Laurie. And that's just so much more just simple. And I think, and simple isn't always necessary for a story, but while there are elements of this movie that do call back to the original film, it seems so different to me. And that is my problem with it. I like this movie. It's not my favorite sequel. My favorite sequel is Halloween 18. I do have my problems with that one. And if you're interested in them, I will tell you. Just let me know. I will make a video about them. It doesn't have to be on Halloween. I could make it in November. It's spooky season to me all year round. I wish that this sequel felt more like a true sequel to the original, as opposed to just a bunch of things just thrown in to make it, I don't know, more interesting. Because I know that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill didn't really want to return to this, and that's why Carpenter decided that he didn't want to direct the movie, and they were going to make it anyway, whether or not he had any involvement in it. And so they basically sat around drinking beers and writing the movie. Carpenter described that his writing of the screenplay mainly dealt with a lot of beer, sitting in front of a typewriter saying, "What the fuck am I doing? I don't know." And in a 1981 Fangoria magazine, Deborah Hill mentions the finished script film differs somewhat from the initial drafts of the screenplay, and upon receiving the script, Yablans was disappointed as he felt it was pedestrian and predictable. The plot twist of Laurie being Michael's sister was initially never planned by Carpenter or Hill, but was conceived, according to Carpenter, purely as a function of having decided to become involved in the sequel to the movie where I didn't think there was really much of a story left. And I agree. There wasn't much story that was left here. It was a film that did not need to be made in the slightest. And because this was, of course, a successful horror film, and typically what happens when you have a successful horror thriller film, the people want their sequels, and especially when what you can sell here is the killer themselves. And Michael was really, not necessarily, Michael was the first of that. There were other characters that I think, people may have attached themselves to, but the success of this, and they knew that Michael was very much a blank slate in a way where they could put so much more into it, and let's make some more money. This is a horror film. You can make them rather cheaply and make a lot more money back. And so that was their decision, and it wasn't a decision that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill really made on their own, and so they just kind of put some stuff in there. And apparently John Carpenter does not like that as well. He referred to it as silly, and again, 100% agree. I don't think it served the story well, and especially when it comes to the other sequels, it just is, it honestly makes it less interesting to me. Film critic Roger Ebert, who praised the first film, notes that the plot of the sequel was rather simple. The plot of Halloween 2 absolutely depends, of course, on our old friend, the idiot plot, which requires that everyone in the movie behave at all times like an idiot. That's necessary because if anyone were to use common sense, the problem would be solved and the movie would be over. I don't agree with the fact that it's simple, but I think we mean something different when we say that, because to me the original film is a simple film because it has a very streamlined plot, and we have Michael who has this desire to kill. He returns to his hometown. He sees Laurie. He's fixated on Laurie, and that is what drives him through the rest of the film. And here, there's a lot more just added backstory, reasoning that is not necessary, and it just becomes a whole lot of nothing. Hill rebuffs such critiques by arguing that in a thriller film, what a character says is often irrelevant, especially in those sequences where the objective is to build up suspense. What made the original so good, and I'll say it again, is its simplicity and is this sense of not really knowing or understanding the reason in which Michael Myers is doing what he's doing. In Halloween 2, we are given a reason, and it really messes with the plot. And I can't say that I agree so much with the idiot plot here in the way Roger Ebert says, because while I can say people make maybe bad, like wrong decisions, stupid decisions, I don't think they do so in the same way that I've seen in other films or other horror films. But I do think that this film, in many ways, took a lot of the suspense and that existed in the first film. And I know that Carpenter was heavily influenced by Hitchcock, and that's not something that's really present here. And I can't say that that's overall a problem with Rosenthal. I think more so it's because of all of the excess that was added. And I'm sure that, Rosenthal had some differences in the way that he directed, and so I would say I prefer Carpenter as a director for sure, but I do believe a lot of the things that were unnecessary, and it took away from the thrill aspect of it and the suspense that was present in the first film. Historian Nicholas Rogers suggests that a portion of the film seems to have drawn inspiration from the contemporary controversy surrounding the holiday itself. He points specifically to the scene in the film when Gary, played by Ty Mitchell, a young boy in a pirate costume, arrives at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital with a razor blade lodged in his mouth, a reference to the urban legend of tainted Hollywood candy. According to Rogers, the Halloween films opened in the wake of the billowing stories about Halloween sadism and clearly traded on the uncertainties surrounding trick-or-treating and the general safety of the festival. I like that look at the film. Every time I see the movie, it's like I forget that happened, and I do like that we get to see other people in the hospital. Things do get really quiet, and it makes sense that this might not be as a bumping of a hospital. This isn't the city, but it is kind of nice to see that, and the fact that it alludes to this urban legend of and things that were becoming something that more people talked about in the late 70s and early 80s, especially with more and more kids going out and trick-or-treating. Because I don't know exactly when, I'll put it on screen, but when it became more of a children's holiday, because it always has been a lot more of something that adults did, and then we kind of put in the more child-friendly aspects of it, and then people got scared that they were putting razor blades in chocolate. And what we know of that has really happened is people trying to off their own children and getting other kids involved. So there's that. But I do like that comes into play in the way we're discussing what's happening now. Nick Castle decided not to return to the film because he was beginning his career as a director then, and I completely understand not wanting to come back to it. He did such a great job in the first film, and I like that he got to make an appearance in Halloween 2018, and I believe he made one in Halloween Kills as well, but it ended up being cut from the film. And I did, I previously stated, I like Warlock's performance here, and Warlock's previous experiences in film as a stunt double, and he is basically a stunt double here as well, but he is the main person that is portraying Michael Myers, and he did a really good job. I did enjoy his performance, and Warlock explained in an interview that he prepared for the role. He said, "I watched the scene where Laurie is huddled in the closet. Michael breaks through. She grabs a hanger and thrusts it up and into his eyes. Michael falls down, and Laurie walks to the bedroom doorway and sits down. In the background, we see Michael sit up and turn towards her to the beat of music. Anyway, that and the head tilt were the things I carried with me into Halloween 2. I didn't really see that much more to hang my hat on in the first film." That and the head tilt are two of the greatest moments in the first film, because we get to see get remnants of who Michael is. We know Michael in many ways is not your typical human being. He is strong. He is somebody who gets shot multiple times, 6 times to be exact, and walks off, and he gets something put in his eye and is able to like just go on with his day as if barely anything happened to him. So we know that he doesn't feel pain, or at least doesn't feel a lot of pain. And we know that he is just a driving force of violence and curiosity. And those moments in the first film really bring that character to life and give the character life that may not have been present prior to that. And so I can see that Dick Warlock did, and I'm glad that he did, take those from the first film and continue that with the character of Michael Myers. The film was made on a larger budget than the first film. Producers Yablans and Akhed invested $2.5 million compared to the $320,000 for the original film, and the Italian film producer Dino De Laurentiis assisted in financing the production as well. There was a discussion in the filming of Halloween 2 to be in 3D, and I'm really glad that they didn't do that because that would have been absolutely atrocious. Hill said, "We investigated a number of 3D processes, but they were far too expensive for the particular project. Also, most of the projects we do involve a lot of night shooting. Evil lurks at night. It's hard to do that in 3D. I'm glad they decided to go against that, and I'm glad that they didn't have the budget for it because holy hell, I don't like 3D. And especially for a movie like this, it just wouldn't have worked. I know they tried it for Friday the 13th 3D. It worked out in the favor that they couldn't afford it here. John Carpenter originally approached Tommy Lee Wallace, who was the art director on the original Halloween, to take the helm, and Carpenter told one interviewer, "I had made that film once and I really didn't want to do it again." After Wallace declined, Carpenter chose Rosenthal, a relatively unknown and inexperienced director whose previous credits included episodes of the television series Secrets of Midland Heights. Rosenthal was chosen to direct based on a short film he had made, The Toyer, while a student at the American Film Institute. Deborah Hill had also considered directing at one point, but did not want to appear as just a protege of Carpenter. One of the things I really love about the Halloween fandom is that there is like a shirt that says a film by Deborah Hill and in the font. I love when writers get their props, and Deborah Hill, more than just the writer on this project, she is one of the reasons that the original Halloween was what it was. And I would have loved to see the decisions that she would make in this film. I think Rosenthal did a good job with what he had, and I would have really liked to see Deborah Hill's take on it, but I can completely understand her reasoning for not wanting to just be like, oh, Carpenter gave it to her, oh, she's his protege. Like, Deborah Hill is Deborah Hill. Rosenthal said, "Conceptually, it's not at all my film. It's a continuation of a John Carpenter and Deborah Hill film, but in execution, it's my vision." And I can say that comes off in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's the setting can really change a film, and you might not want the film to be completely like atmospherically the same as the original film. And again, like I think the original film, you can see a lot more of those Hitchcockian influences, and I think the fact that those don't necessarily exist in the same way in Halloween 2 is more to the Rosenthal touch of it. But I do think that he did a good job at attempting to create that through line of making it like this is still exists within that universe. This is Halloween 2. It is the same night, and at least make it seem cohesive to that original film, because when you get into Halloween 4 and 5, those films, especially 5, the movies are so tonally different and are more of a hodgepodge of like, what the hell is this? Where this one is a lot more cohesive, or Halloween 2 is a lot more cohesive than some of those later sequels. And I think, and that is honestly, in the end, credit where credit is due. Rosenthal did create a good sequel as a director that allowed audiences to continue with this story and not make it just completely just a producer's film, should I say. Rosenthal also stated that he attempted to replicate the visual elements of the previous film. Until we get into the hospital, once we're in there, I got a certain freedom. Long corridors, moody dark lighting, all of that. In an interview with Luke Ford, Rosenthal explains, "The first movie I ever did was a sequel, but it was supposed to be a direct continuation. It started 1 minute after the first movie ended. You have to try hard to maintain the style of the first movie. I wanted it to feel like a two-parter. You had the responsibility and the restraints of the style that's been set. It was the same crew. My philosophy was to do more of a thriller than a slasher movie." This one feels more slashery than Halloween. Halloween is not a bloody movie. The thing with Halloween, and I do think there's parts of Halloween 2 that stick to that, but it's that it's so much more of what's kind of in your head. Like the idea of someone being stabbed. The idea of the knife just kind of going down her arm, and him being shot multiple times and somehow he gets back up. Where did he go? These are both slasher films, but I think Halloween 2 definitely fits even more so into the slasher film. But I get that he, you know, when you're it's like a two-parter of a television series, and you have like the first movie and then you like the first part of it going directly out of it. I do see a lot more of that kind of influence, that Hitchcockian Carpenter influence, and then things get a little bit different as we get into the hospital, and he has a lot more freedom to do what he wanted, and so I can see what he was going for there, and it does have those very thriller moments, which, you know, there's plenty of a slasher that do, but this one I would say is a lot more of a slasher, like a straight slasher, in a sense, than the first film, or at least more slasher than the first film.
Forget it, bud. I have to go back to work.
Apparently, though, it was Carpenter that wanted to make this movie a lot bloodier than the original film, which is not something that Rosenthal wanted. Wallace explains, since the release of Halloween, horror movies had changed. There was inflation involved in terms of violence and gore and what you saw on screen, to the point that John Carpenter felt like he was in a box. He could not do the same thing that Halloween had been doing. According to the film's official website, Carpenter came in and directed a few sequences to clean up some of Rosenthal's work. One reviewer of the film notes that Carpenter, concerned that the picture would be deemed too tame by the slasher audience, refilmed several death scenes with more gore. When asked about the role and directing process, Carpenter told an interviewer, "That's a long story. That was a project I got involved in as a result of several different kinds of pressure. I had no influence over the direction of the film. I had an influence in post-production. I saw a rough cut of Halloween 2 and it wasn't scary. It was about as scary as Quincy. So we had to do some post-production work to bring it at least up to par with the competition." By the time Halloween 2 came out, there had already been Friday the 13th, which in reality isn't necessarily as gory as what these films would turn out to be as well, but it definitely was a lot more like hit on the nose for what the slasher genre would become than what Halloween was. And I think Carpenter, with his name being on it, felt that pressure, and felt the pressure from not only like the producers and those investing in the movie, but just felt the general pressure about what was happening in the horror field at that time, and in the world of horror and the world of slasher. Rosenthal was not pleased with Carpenter's changes, and he reportedly complained that Carpenter ruined my carefully placed film. Regardless, many of the graphic scenes contained elements not seen before in the film. Roger Ebert claims, "The movie was the first close-up I can remember of a hypodermic needle being inserted into an eyeball. The film is often categorized as a splatter film rather than a slasher film due to the elevated level of gore." I don't understand that. And maybe it's because I've seen so many different like horror and slasher films over the years, and Halloween 2 would be tame in comparison to so many of them. Referring to it as a splatter film makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, this is a slasher movie. Carpenter did return as composer of this movie, and that was another thing that I really loved about the most recent trilogy, is that Carpenter returned to it. Carpenter is incredibly talented as a musician. He's an incredibly talented composer, and the music that he chooses for his films elevates them to another level, and that was something that really made the original Halloween stand out, and so I'm glad that he continued.
This evening, authorities have confirmed that all 3 of the victims are teenagers, 2 girls and a boy.
The film is not as successful as the original Halloween, though it was very successful in its own right, and it was #1 at the box office. The movie was not reviewed as well. It wasn't as a critical a success as the original Halloween. Roger Ebert, among others, gave the original movie its props. They gave him its praise. But this film did not experience that same kind of praise that the original did, and understandably, there was no need for a sequel. I have a soft place in my heart for this movie, but I feel the same way a lot of people did. I probably wouldn't be like as bad on it. David Priory's review in Time Out gave Halloween 2 positive marks, stating Rosenthal is no Carpenter, but he makes a fair job of emulating the latter's visual style in the sequel, and he wrote that Myers' character had evolved since the first film to become an agent of absolute evil. Film historian Jim Harper suggests time has been a little fairer to the film than original critics in retrospect. Many critics have come to recognize that it's considerably better than the slew of imitation slashers that swamped the genre in the 80s. Much like the original Halloween, this one did have some feminist critics not like the movie. It did come under fire. According to historian Nicholas Rogers, academic critics have seen the slasher movies since Halloween as debasing women in as decisive a manner as hardcore pornography. There are horror movies that I would say probably do that. I do not think that either Halloween or Halloween 2 do that, and I can understand, like, regardless of your gender, regardless of your sex, you may not like these movies for the violence that it portrays, and there are definitely movies where I do not like the way a woman is treated in them, and they can be very, very mean. But I do think a lot of the reactions that some people have to slasher films, and in the Halloween films, Halloween 2 in particular, is very just overdone. Like, if you don't like it, that's totally fine, but they make up these critiques that I don't think that are quite baseless and don't have, there's no, just say that you don't like it.
Come in, please. Chief Brackett, come in, please.
Who is it?
Chief, this is Ramsey.
Say again, what is it?
This is Ramsey.
Where are...
Halloween 2 may not live up to its predecessor, but it does have a place in my heart and a place in the hearts of many a horror fan. It is probably the favorite sequel for the Halloween films that a lot of people have, and while it might not be mine, again, I do find enjoyment in it. I watch it every year for Halloween, like I do the original, and the movie itself isn't very good to its characters, particularly, I would say, Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis, and a big reason for that being is that they had to add a bunch of unnecessary stuff for the characters that didn't serve them particularly well, and then you add these other characters that a lot of them we did get to know a little bit more about, so I appreciate that, but it still didn't have what made the original film so great, and that is the incredible relationships and dialogue between the girls, which is something that really made the first film so special. And yes, while Halloween 2 does not live up to that, and I could say it again and again, Halloween 2 is still a good sequel to its original film. I would do things differently, yes I would, but I appreciate the work that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill did amidst the cigarette smoke and the beer goggles that gave us this movie. And Rick Rosenthal came in and gave it his best shot, and I do think he did a good job at kind of taking the atmosphere that existed in that first film and assuring that at least some of it made it into the sequel. it sometimes I think about like what would it be if we lived in a world where there were no Halloween sequels and there was just the original Halloween? Would we still think so fondly of that movie, or is it the existence of these sequels that makes us look back and really realize what we had with Halloween? I personally think that we would still love Halloween, especially since John Carpenter had done stuff since that became classics or cult classics. We've got like The Thing and we've got those. So I do think that Halloween, regardless of whether there were sequels or not, would be something that people still looked on as a good slasher film and the beginning of them, because it did inspire Friday the 13th to happen and a lot of those other slashers from the 80s. Halloween 2 is a lot better in the way in its storytelling and its direction than some of those really, quick slashers that kept coming out throughout the 80s. And I would say that it's definitely, as much as its original, inspired a lot of other slasher films since it came out in 1981. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hear me discuss Halloween 2. I'm sure there was so much more that I wanted to say, but I just I wrote some notes down, and part of me just went off the cuff for this one because I know at least Halloween and Halloween 2 pretty well, and I know the franchise pretty well, especially since I was quite obsessed with it in my teens. Like, this was my franchise then. So this one is definitely one that I like to revisit. I haven't seen a lot of those other sequels in so long. If you want me to talk about any of the others, if you want to talk me about the Halloween 2018, that trilogy, let me know in the comments. Let me know your favorite sequel. Let me know your thoughts on Halloween 2. Do you like it? Do you hate it? What did you like about it? What did you hate about it? Just please let me know in the comments. I love to hear from you, and it does help me out a lot. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified every single time I post. I want to wish you a happy Halloween, and if you're like me and you continue to enjoy spooky season through November, I hope you're having an excellent one. Have a wonderful Halloween, a wonderful spooky season, and I'll see you in the next one.